Hey y'all, this is Sam with the Roots of Change Agency, and I'm very excited to have my friend Janelle Johnson on today. We are getting into the depths of the MAHA movement and how we can move towards disability justice as a collective. So, Janelle, I'm so excited for you to be here. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and how you got here today?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on the podcast and glad to share some time with your audience. Um, like Sam said, I'm Janelle Johnson, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a whole lot of other things. So I am co-owner and founder of Bridges Family Life Center. We are a family therapy and consulting practice in right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm also a consultant. I do a lot of work with organizations and researchers, boards that are looking to diversify or are looking to grow in their disability awareness. And then I'm a neurodiversity researcher and doctoral candidate at NC State University. So that's a little bit about me. Personally, I am a multiply neurodivergent, multiply disabled human, and married to a neurodivergent human, and I'm parenting a multiply disabled, multiply neurodivergent kiddo.
Amazing. I forgot that you were in North Carolina, and I just love that. I This is like a small sidebar, but I went to camp in North Carolina when I was young, and I just have such a
Oh,
spot for like the Asheville area, but just North Carolina in general.
oh, good to know. Good to know. Yes, I'm an Army brat, but I have spent the majority of my adulthood here in North Carolina. So I call, if any place is home, I call North Carolina home.
Amazing. Well, I'm really, like I said, I'm very excited to talk with you because I really appreciate your just general perspective on disability justice, but also just like humaning in a world that is not really designed for us.
Yeah.
Um, and before we get into the, like, before we poke the bear literally with RFK Jr., um, I wanted to kind of get into your kind of practice around disability justice, but like really that broader sense of like, how do we just accept that we have neurodiversity, we have like diversity of bodies, and really kind of
Mm.
move beyond the current conversation of disability?
That's such a great question. A lot of folks are asking me questions about like, how do you pull all the things that you do together? Like, how are you doing so many things? And for me, what I found when I became physically disabled, like when I had challenges that affected my mobility. So I have some challenges that affect my mobility from time to time, dynamically disabled. And when that happened to me, it really opened my eyes to think beyond everything that I thought that I knew about disability and disability identity development. And so, what I do personally, and now what I work with other organizations and researchers to think about is how disability can be a bridge builder. Um, Everyone will become disabled, will experience disability if they live long enough. So, disability is this thing that it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, how much education you have, it doesn't matter where you grew up, it doesn't matter, and none of that matters what gender you are, um, your sexual orientation. Everybody has to deal with disability. Everyone is either experiencing it for themselves or someone they know and love right now is experiencing disability. And that is even more so the case since COVID 19.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about something that seems far off. And with that said, it gives the foundation for us to start having all kinds of conversations about all kinds of things that have to do with power and privilege. And then more basic things like how are we educating our children fairly, or how are we making sure that everyone has good accessibility in the workplace. It serves as this good place for everyone to meet and talk at the table about these things that unfortunately are very polarizing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say from my perspective, like where I come from a disability perspective is I was like temporarily disabled when I was a teenager because I did so much sports. I played field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, cross country. I did it all. And senior year, or actually, I've had this happen twice in my life. My body just said, "You're done. You need to stop." And so my back was I was physically disabled for a number of years, and I have flare ups and it's still here with me, but I've really like took a different lens on being disabled, because I think what you're touching on is like our society views disability in like a certain way as like it's a fear tactic. Like we are afraid of disability. And not to
Right.
get too deep on this, but I think like the crux of that is like a fear of death. And like that's something that we as a society really need to grapple with. But like as soon as we move past that fear of disability, as you said, like we are all going to be disabled. So how do we accept what is so that we can then move in a way that allows us to be healthy? Like I am so much more healthier because I understand the disability that I have so that I can move and strengthen myself in different ways. And also, I will say, like strength is not the only thing. Like rest, giving yourself that patience and kindness to yourself is also the most important thing.
Exactly, exactly. Going back to your original question about how are we framing disability and neurodivergence and how do we live with that? Um, One of the best things about the neurodiversity paradigm is it gives us this frame to do just that, to approach life in a way where we're aware that there are different brains and different bodies, and these are natural occurrences.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. You can go all the way back to 1,000 years, and there was different brains and bodies. That this is something that naturally occurs in humanity, and so since we know that, then it's a different approach to looking at the world to think that this is how things are supposed to be. That disability is not this errant thing that we need to root out. It's not going to be rooted out ever. It's not going to be, it's not possible. That's not how humanity is. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
So, if we know that, then we can take different approaches, like, I don't know, universal design, for instance. We know that there's different humans on the planet. So that means we know that we should, if we are trying to be accommodating to all the different humans that are, we should be building things and building learning environments for UDL that work for all these different humans that exist. So it really is a shift in mentality of, to your point, not being afraid. Like this is just part of life. Um, and um, it's not all bad. It's okay to have disabilities, to have neurodivergent brains, and still be happy, still live the best life.
Yeah.
Can do both.
Yeah. And I think like that's one thing where I see on the other side of a hopeful future, like real beauty. Because in my experience, working with all types of people, everyone has different brains and they have different abilities. And I think that's so amazing. Like, if we really tapped in to what different disabled folks can give, like, there's like people who are neurodivergent. Like, I definitely have, I call myself neurospicy because I'm like on this, like, I'm touching it, but I'm not like fully there. But I'll get like really geeky and deep into these things. And I'm like, that's really beneficial. There's some people who are really big data nerds. Like, why aren't we building a society that allows people to like bring their biggest gifts to the world? Because then we all feel better and we're not as anxious as we are right now in this world.
Sure, sure. And I think there's benefits and challenges to every perspective, right? So um, there's there are folks who are there are folks who are celebratory of neurodivergence, but then they struggle to celebrate different races, and so that's where intersectionality comes in, like to make sure that we're embracing whole people and not just talking about one part of their identity. But you're right, like there's so much that people have to offer. And that's not to say that there's no room for growth or improvement, or we shouldn't work towards being as healthy as we can be, or whatever those things are. That's not to say that either. It is to say that um, being realistic is looking at the world for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And real hope, real hope does not dismiss reality.
Hmm. Yeah.
It accepts what is and then dreams for a better future.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think, hope is also, I say hope is an action. So it's like we can hope for things, but we have to, do that work internally and externally. And I think to your point, yes, like we should all be unpacking that a little bit of like, how can we see all of us, including ourselves, as whole people within all of our intersectionalities? Like, I talk a lot about this on the podcast, but I present as a white and very femme, and I'm also Latina. I am two spirit, indigenous. Like, there's so much about me that is not visible. And I think when we don't allow that for other people, then we miss out on the magic that other people can give to us. So I do want to transition to RFK, which I'm like, I'm really enjoying just living in this world. I don't really want to go over there. Um, but I think we have to touch that space. And I think, what I really want to do is like kind of start with COVID and how RFK Jr. has come to be here today in the White House. Because as you said, COVID was a huge social disconnection. Like we lost a lot in terms of that connective tissue. And I will say
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that was by design. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
that was elites really being fearful of the conversations we were just having. Like a lot of those
Yes.
conversations were being had in 2020, and there was joy and there was movement towards that type of world. And I think we're seeing with RFK Jr. that he's someone that has really lived in that old world. He lives in the world where they used to lock up people who were deemed mentally ill. Um,
Yeah.
and so now he is enacting that worldview on the rest of us. So I'll turn it over to you and just get your perspective on how you've seen that evolve since COVID.
Sure, sure. It's challenging for those of us that are part of the system, right? So I'm a licensed mental health professional. I'm the first Black president, past president of North Carolina Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, and so I'm very much a part of the system that is um, was developed in a way that was unhealthy and discriminatory, and that the roots of psychology are very problematic, um, much like the roots of our country in and of itself. And so to say that, hey, we, point fingers and say like RFK Jr. is making this terrible. It's a manifestation of the roots of what healthcare is in the
Mhm.
United States, and things that have gone untouched, untalked about, that have been hidden, that we're not trained on. We don't know, like those of us that are mental health professionals or in healthcare in general, we're not taught the history of what we're becoming a part of. So, I don't say these things to point fingers, is what I'm saying. But I do see a significant problem with leaders using leadership to um, miseducate,
Mm.
to misdirect, to take advantage of people. I do see a big problem with that. And so, what RFK Jr. has done to arise to his uh, current place in leadership is um, activating fear.
Mm.
Activating fear of parents and caregivers who are trying to decide what, if they should vaccinate their children when they're born, for instance. Um, and using something like autism to say like this is worth creating fear mongering around, when we have so much research, so much evidence to say the opposite, and also so much research and evidence to say you could do whatever you want to do. Autism has been around for a long, long time. It's not going anywhere. It is part of the human genome. It's going to be there. So, um, this whole idea of quote unquote curing it is according to the overwhelming majority of the research that's out there, it's kind of a moot point. Why are we trying? We don't say these things about other things. Um,
I equated a lot to like queerness too, of like, oh, all of a sudden everyone's gay now. And it's like, no, like queerness has been a part of the human experience, but we
Forever.
forever, but we as a society has suppressed that. And to your point,
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to colonialism and our greatest sins of this country, which is how, our healthcare system was founded on those bones.
Sure, sure. For the work that I do, I understand that it's more ancient than that. But
Okay.
long before colonialism, there was ableism, and so um, some of our earliest examples of ableism are in ancient Greece.
Mm.
So you're talking about old, old, old. Um, the Spartan community um, had laws that were written that babies had to be discarded if they had any kind of deformity or anything like that. According to them, deformity. So um, this systemic ableism is ancient, and so ancient that ableism um, invisibilizes people. It invisibilizes discrimination and inequity. It is used to usher in and to form a foundation for a lot of the other isms that came a lot later, like
Mm.
racism. In my book chapter in um, anti-blackness and the stories of authentic allies, I talk a lot about how ableism and racism are wonder twins, that there would be no racism without ableism, this base assumption that disabled bodies and brains are less than.
Yeah.
That was just already accepted.
Mm.
And so then you can use that to build something like racism
Yeah.
that has become what it has become over the last 600 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's so interesting. And I really appreciate that. I think about two things. One, I think about Jesus and like the stories in the Bible. And whether you're a Christian or not, these are stories, they're historical stories. And
Mm-hmm.
was a disability justice activist. He
Yes. Yes.
So if we really want to talk about, like that, the Christian spirit, Jesus very much was radically disability justice advocate. But I also, like, to your point about racism, I think about this book I read from Sabrina Strings, um, Fearing the Black Body, and
Mm.
it's all about, like, to your point, like having the foundation of ableism. And I don't think she mentions that specifically, but then she gets into like how easy it was to vilify the Africans that were coming into Europe through, in like slavery, indentured
Yep.
servitude. And that was so easy to build that propaganda. And, like the Roots of Change Agency is media ecosystem. We're trying to build healthy media. Like, that's an
Mm-hmm.
example of that continuous propaganda to the point where it just feels natural in our world. And ableism is just the air that we breathe, and
Oh,
racism.
exactly, exactly. A lot of your audience would really appreciate the book Racecraft. Talks a lot about the foundation of racism and the propaganda that is the roots of
Mm.
marketing.
Oh,
And so to your point, yes, in Racecraft, the authors talk a lot about um, um, the jealousy and the fear that fueled this move in Europe to build
yeah.
a rhetoric that became the foundation for what became racism.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, we imported it to Turtle Island, and we see now today, like, I like um US ableism is like its own type of thing. And I guess,
That's
like,
true.
do you want to, like, I'm curious about your perspective, like, of RFK Jr. and his, like, his kind of worldview.
Sure. I like to say it like this, and maybe I am of this mind because I'm a therapist, and so I've been serving people for 13 years that have all kinds of not only brains and bodies, but also lived experiences,
Mhm.
families, and the ways that they were raised in. Um, the Kennedys are a very interesting family. And as a
Yes.
family therapist, that's the way that I frame mental health. And so that's where I go with it. I look at the way that this person was raised and the kinds of things that they were exposed to or not, um, and how people manage trauma. We know that some people manage trauma by becoming advocates and activists and different things like that. And then other people manage trauma. Most people actually manage trauma in other ways that lean to kind of unhealthy, negative outcomes.
Hmm.
And all of these things are just the way that humans are and have always been from the beginning of time. So RFK Jr. is just an example of someone that may have experienced some really difficult things as a result of living with and being raised around folks that had moderate to severe mental health challenges and um, has had his own challenges with different things, substance abuse and what have you, that, this person chose to direct that energy in this way that um, most would argue, especially anybody that is in the sciences or in the social sciences, well, most of us would argue this is harmful. This is harmful to the American people.
Mhm.
But what power and privilege do is they amplify whatever you are,
Yeah.
and so we're getting kind of the fallout.
Yes. Yeah.
of someone that's hurting, and hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate that view, because I know it's really hard for people to go there, especially with people who are so powerful in our world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talk a lot about agape love, on the Roots of Change Agency and podcast, because, like, for us to really let go and build something better, we have to let go of that from ourselves, because a lot of that too is our own hurt. And then we also have to, like, really see the humanity in others. Like,
Right.
I can disagree very vehemently against RFK Jr., and I can do everything I possibly can to stop his actions. And I can recognize that he's a human that has really been hurt in this world.
Exactly. Exactly. My one of my most favorite uh, quotes is born from this story that Maya Angelou, one of my favorite ancestors, talks about. It's this African proverb by Terence that says, um, um, I am human. Nothing human is alien to me.
Mm, yeah.
And so she goes on to say, the brute, the bigot, and the batterer are all children of God. And I am a child of God too. So we're all connected, right? Like there's just because someone is engaging in egregious behavior, I need to understand that I am connected to them as a human being, and that I am fully capable of the evils and the terrors that this other person is committing.
Yeah.
That I am a human, and therefore I am fully capable of behaving in such ways. Um, and the opposite, all the wonderful, most amazing humans and the cool things that they have done, the impactful, powerful things that they have done, I have the capability of being that human as well. Um, so for me, when I look at whoever is sitting across from me on the couch, or whoever is sitting in front of me when I'm conducting consulting or training, um, or speaking, I look at every single human like that. Like we in this together, even if I don't love what you're doing. Even if I can't stand your policies,
Yes.
even if your policies are literally harming me and my family and my community, I'm still stuck with you because we're humans together.
Yeah.
And so, what are we going to do? How are we going to work this out? And I'm not going to demonize you. Your actions might be demonizing you, but I'm not going to do it.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to try to figure out how to, like you said, advocate for those of us who need support and advocacy, but um, also figure out how to build a bridge with you. And that's because that's what I feel like I'm on the planet to do. I am very much a bridge builder, and I'm capable
Yeah.
of that kind of love, demonstrating that kind of love. That's very hard to do for a lot of other people. But I try my best to keep doing it. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but I try my best, and I don't get it right all the time, you know. But, I just try
Yeah.
and try to encourage others to do the same. It relieves a lot of stress, because hate is too heavy to carry.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, around just like practical advice of like how to move through this moment, but I feel like you just shared a lot of that, of like, I think there's so much. I One of the things that, this moment is it's overwhelming. It is fast. We are, like, they are intentionally trying to overwhelm us and push
Mm-hmm.
view on us to say, this is it. You have no choice. This is all the options you have. And so they understand. This is the thing about that is so dangerous, is they understand psychology too.
Mm-hmm.
They,
Yep.
they are very smart about psychology. And I think, when we talk about the left and like the Democratic Party and other institutions, they don't understand psychology, and that's why they are not succeeding in this moment. But the overwhelm and bringing the grounded energy and just being kind to yourself, I feel like is a big piece. But I'm curious too, like you mentioned, families and mothers, and how RFK Jr. is really, like, touching on a kernel of truth. So
Mm-hmm.
how can we, as heart first humans, people who care, how do we move through this world and kind of help untangle some of this?
That's such a great question. First, let's just say what it is. It's not easy. And
Mm,
so a lot of times folks want this kind of like, laid out like, hey, this is how we can move through this. It's
yeah.
not like this. It is messy. It is going to be messy. It's going to be messy for a long time. We haven't even figured out how to recover from COVID yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when COVID happened, I was talking with my husband, and he was like, yeah, like hopefully we'll be able to make it through this, and things will be better. And I told him, I said, this is the kind of world event that takes years, decades to
Yeah.
begin to recover from. We are going to see the fallout of this for a long time, and this is a piece of that,
Yeah.
what
And
we're living now.
yeah.
um but it's because there was a whole lot happening at one time, with the um, with the pandemic itself, but then with the racial reckoning that happened on a global scale in ways that it never had. And when you have stuff like that, multiple things like that happening at one time, this never before seen, uh, I don't even know if folks had heard the word unprecedented that many times in in the news cycle,
Yeah.
but we got real familiar with that word unprecedented. Now we're like, you know,
Right.
we're not even phased by the word anymore at this point. Like unprecedented, really? Yeah. Um, but that's the kind of world we were in, where we were experiencing those things. So you don't recover. Humanity doesn't like recover from that in 4 years or 8 years. Um, you're talking about the kind of thing that we read about in history, like the Dark Ages, like this whole, um, you know, 20, 30, 50 years that
Sure.
impacted humanity, or impacted a section of humanity. It's
Yeah.
one of those kinds of events, but on a global scale. So I said all that to say, when you have things like that happening, where unprecedented is the word of the day, then the best thing to do is make sure that you are as supported as you can be, and that you are building your community as firmly as you can. Um, for some people, they feel like some of the things that I say sound kind of like doomsday, like what I'm getting ready to say, which is nobody's coming to save you. Um, they feel like that's kind of doomsday. For me, as an ADOS, an African descendant of slavery, I was raised with this mentality that no one is coming to save you.
Yeah.
And so, and there are lots of ADOS who are of the same mind. Like, this is just the way that it is. This is just how it is. And we don't expect anyone to come save us. And so there's lots of strength that can be gathered from that, from people who have experienced this kind of thing, who have lived as multiply marginalized people. This is our reality all the time. So this is why you see Black people line dancing. This is, we know what to do. And
Yes.
so we're not stressed out. I mean, yes, it's stressful. Don't get me wrong. It's not that
Yeah.
we're not experiencing stress, but we know what to do. What do you do when things are, you feel like the world is falling apart? Our ancestors, provided plenty of roadmaps.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we need to go back and look at those roadmaps. What have people done when the world was falling apart? What have people done in the past when they felt like they didn't have any power? What did they do to gain power? What did they do to build community? What did they do to advance coalitions across difference? There's roadmaps. This is not the first time that, the world's been on fire.
Yes.
And so for me, what I encourage folks to do is how can you build your community? How can you gain better coalitions? What can you do to strengthen the community that you do have? To be strategic about helping folks in your community to be catapulted to positions of influence and power and
Mm.
to keep them there.
Yeah.
How can you protect those people who are capable of reaching across the aisle or across the table, who are capable of building tables? um, so you don't have to worry about, working at somebody else's or sitting at someone else's.
Tables are
Um,
expensive too, so fund the tables.
right, exactly. Like all of that. There are tons of examples right here in the US of different folks, particularly what I know about the most is ADOS, particularly ADOS communities that were doing this and have done this consistently again and again and again over time and don't stop and don't give up. And then when we get tired, we go somewhere and we rest and we dance and we make music and art and, you know, this is what you do. Follow the blueprint.
Yeah. I am so appreciative of that response, and I just like want to replay that over and over again. Because I think you pretty much just summed up like the entire ethos of the Roots of Change Agency. Because like that's it, right? Like we have to get back to that, and so much of like what I hope to do is to use my privilege as like I feel like I'm a fulcrum, like that point in the joint,
Mm-hmm.
where I span different worlds and I can play in so
Mm-hmm.
many different worlds. You would be surprised the things that people will tell you when they think that you are on their team.
Yep.
And so, like, I have that privilege. So, how can I then elevate the work that I am using to build my strength? Like, you see all of these books back here. Like, these are Black women. These are queer folks. These are Indigenous people who have done this work for centuries.
Yep.
Um, and to your point about dancing, like I went to the Malcolm X Jazz Festival in Oakland a few weeks ago.
Oh.
It was like just your body feels so good in those moments, and just to hear the music
Mm-hmm.
and the joy and the art. And we got to watch some like rap and dance battles, and it was
Oh.
it was amazing. I felt full. Um, so like, yeah, tap into your body, do some dancing, do some creativity. Like we can really get through this moment together. So
Yes, yes. That's the crux of a lot of the tenets of disability justice too.
yeah,
Um, um, these group of folks that decided that we're going to bring our full selves, we're going to bring our black and brown selves, our queer selves, um, our women and femme selves, our crip selves, all of it. We're going to bring all of it. We're going to be our full selves. We're not going to fraction parts of ourselves out.
yeah,
Um, and then we're going to celebrate all that. Okay, so what? I'm crip. So what? I'm fat. So what? I'm whatever it is. It doesn't mean that I can't sing and dance and um, be fashionable and whatever those things are. To I can't celebrate rest or whatever. Like we gonna resist out here and we're gonna have a good time doing it as much as we can. Um, it's a different way of approaching um, it's a different way of approaching advocacy and activism,
Hmm.
a way of doing it that is more sustainable. Um, because we recognize that we're under pressures that other folks are not. We need to address sustainability. We need to address um, um, cultural relevance. We need to, incorporate those things so that we can be in it for the long as we can,
Yeah.
um, and still support each other, provide good care work to one another as we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are just about at time, and I'm so appreciative of how this conversation flowed. I really think it's something that people need to hear right now and like really take in. Like, it's okay. We can be grounded. We can really move through this moment. Um, the last thing that I'll share is just a pitch for we have a new program called the Assistant Activist Program, which is really designed to support those frontline communities that you're talking about. So organizations and organizers who are working directly for disability justice, for racial justice, queer rights, all of these things, they need support, they need resources and education,
Mm,
they need to know how to navigate the digital and communications hellscape that we're currently in. Um,
mm,
and so
yeah.
that is what the Assistive Activist Program is for. It's like $100, and you support an organization or activist who is doing the work on the front lines. And you're also supporting the Roots of Change Agency and helping us build a healthy ecosystem. So that's me. I do want to make sure that you get to share anything else. How can people find your work? How can people support you?
Well, right now, the best thing to do is reach out to, on my website, you can reach out to bridgesflc.com/consulting and work with me as a consultant, speaker, or trainer. So if you have an event that is coming up where you're looking for a quality speaker that can speak to concerns with equity, concerns with disability or neurodivergence, or concerns with mental health, or the intersection of any of those three things, I would love to speak to your audience or provide consulting to your organization, your board, or your university or research team. So you can reach out to me again at bridgesflc.com/consulting to partner with me. And then also you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there to keep up with the stuff that I'm doing at the Family Fanatic, the Family Fanatic.
Awesome. And we'll also share all of those in the show notes as well as our resource hubs so that people can access your work in the future as well. Thank you so much, Janelle. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Just thanks again for having me. I really enjoyed being on the podcast. I love podcasts in general, but I love yours too. And it's good to be connected and be friends with you. I will just end with saying that joy, peace, and rest are not things that we have to earn. And so the act of engaging in purposefully seeking joy, peace, and rest is one of the greatest ways that you can resist in times like these. And I encourage you to do that with you and your family and your community.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And with that, everybody stay rooted.